I used to believe that life-altering truths arrived with the force of a hurricane, screaming arguments, slammed doors, the violent shattering of glass. But for me, the apocalypse began with a whisper, a tiny, almost imperceptible glint on the beige bathroom rug. It was a Tuesday morning, and I'd stumbled into the ensuite half asleep, leaving the lights off. A thin, buttery shaft of late autumn sun spilled through the slats of the window blind, painting a striped path across the floor. My foot hesitated mid-step, a primal instinct warning me of something foreign, something sharp. Elena, my wife, was fastidious. She wouldn't have left a stray earring or a broken piece of a toy lying around. But our 5-year-old daughter, Chloe, was a different story. Her tiny plastic dinosaurs had a habit of migrating to the most inconvenient places. Kneeling down, my knees cracking a quiet protest, I squinted at the source of the reflection. It wasn't plastic. It was a small, perfect circle of foil, no larger than the tip of my little finger. I picked it up. One side was blank, a dull silver. The other was printed with a single, stark word: 2. A cold, minuscule knot of something, not quite fear, more like profound disorientation, tightened in my gut. It was the backing from a blister pack for a daily pill, the kind you push through. Today was Tuesday, but that meant this was from today's pill, or yesterday's. I wasn't on any medication. At 38, I was the picture of health, a fact my annual physical with Dr. Evans had confirmed just last month. My cholesterol was enviable, my blood pressure textbook. Beyond the occasional ibuprofen for a headache after a long day staring at architectural schematics, I took nothing. Elena? As far as I knew, she wasn't on anything either. We'd had our checkups together, holding hands in the waiting room like the happily married couple we were supposed to be. The doctor had told us both we were in peak condition. She'd even joked about us winning the genetic lottery. But now I held Tuesday's foil backing in my trembling hand. The chill that spread through me was arctic. If she was still on the pill, it could only mean one of two things. She was worried about getting pregnant, and if she was worried about getting pregnant, it meant one of two even worse things. My vasectomy had reversed itself, a statistical anomaly but not impossible, or she was being intimate with someone else. The room seemed to tilt. I gripped the edge of the vanity, my breath coming in short, shallow gasps. My first impulse was to storm into our bedroom, wave the foil in her sleeping face, and demand an explanation. But a deeper, more calculating instinct, the same one that allowed me to solve complex structural problems for a living, told me to wait, to be sure. If I was wrong, an accusation like that would crater our marriage based on a piece of trash. If I was right, I needed to know the full extent of the truth before I showed my hand. I was a man who dealt in facts, in load-bearing weights and unassailable data. I needed a foundation of evidence before I decided whether my world was truly collapsing. With a surgeon's precision, I placed the tiny foil circle back exactly where I had found it. I rearranged the rug's fibers to erase the impression of my knees. I left the bathroom as if I'd never been there, the ghost of my discovery haunting the silent air. The drive to work was a blur of gray asphalt and grayer thoughts. My mind, usually a well-ordered library of designs and deadlines, was a chaotic storm of questions with no answers. By the time I pulled into my parking spot at Corbett and Shaw Architects, my knuckles were white on the steering wheel. I sat in the silence of my car watching my employees filter in through the glass doors, clutching coffees and laptops. My partner Mark Shaw gave me a cheerful wave from his Porsche before heading inside. I couldn't bring myself to wave back. Instead of heading to my office on the 3rd floor, I stayed put. I pulled out my phone, my thumb hovering over the search bar. Then I began typing. Private DNA testing. Discreet. Fast. The results were a flood of options. I clicked on one, then another. My stomach churned. This felt like a profound violation of trust, a descent into a paranoia I never knew I possessed. But the image of that foil circle gleaming innocently on the rug was burned onto my retina. I didn't stop there. Hidden cameras, voice-activated recorders, GPS trackers, how to clone a cell phone.
The digital breadcrumbs of my crumbling marriage led me down a dark and sordid path. Within an hour, my online shopping cart was filled with the tools of betrayal. Mini cameras that looked like smoke detectors and USB chargers. A voice recorder disguised as a key fob. 2 DNA test kits. The total was staggering, both financially and morally. I rationalized it as a necessary evil. I needed unassailable, concrete proof. I needed to see it with my own eyes before I could allow myself to believe it, before I could dismantle the life we had built together. I had the packages sent to the office. Michelle, my executive assistant of nearly a decade, was the soul of discretion. She wouldn't ask questions. The next 3 days were an exercise in agonizing suspense. Every minute spent at home was a performance worthy of an Oscar. I smiled at Elena over pancakes. I wrestled with Lucas on the living room floor. I read Chloe her bedtime story, Goodnight Moon, my voice steady, even as my heart hammered against my ribs. I watched Elena like a hawk, searching for cracks in the facade, but there were none. Her routine was unchanged. She went to her yoga class on Wednesday mornings. She met her friend Sarah for lunch on Thursday. Our intimate life, which had settled into a comfortable, twice-a-week rhythm, continued as usual. She didn't flinch when I touched her. She didn't smell of unfamiliar cologne. She was either innocent, or she was the most accomplished liar I had ever known. When the delivery notification finally chimed on my phone on Friday afternoon, a jolt of adrenaline shot through me. Michelle had signed for the packages and placed them unopened in my private closet. "Rough week, my David?" Mark asked, popping his head into my office. "You've been quiet. Everything okay with Elena and the kids?" "Just a lot on my mind," I said, forcing a smile. "The Henderson project is a beast. Think I'll head out early, try to get a fresh start on it Monday." He nodded sympathetically. "Don't work too hard. Give that gorgeous family of yours a hug from me." The words felt like a physical blow. That gorgeous family of yours. Were they? I waited until he'd left, then retrieved the boxes. They felt heavy, with their terrible potential. I drove home, the cardboard containers on the passenger seat seeming to pulse with a malevolent energy. Elena was at the grocery store with Lucas. Only Maria, our live-in nanny, was home watching cartoons with Chloe in the den. "I'm not feeling well," I told Maria, forcing a cough. "Going to lie down for a bit. Could you keep the kids downstairs?" She nodded, her expression concerned. "Of course, Mr. Corbett. Can I get you anything?" "No thank you, Maria. Just quiet." I took the stairs 2 at a time, locking the bedroom door behind me. My hands shook as I tore open the boxes. I spread the contents on our king-sized bed, on the duvet Elena and I had chosen together on a happy weekend trip to Vermont. The irony was acid in my throat. I worked quickly, efficiently. The small camera for the bathroom went inside the vent above the shower, its pinhole lens offering a wide view of the vanity. Another, disguised as a digital alarm clock, went on my bedside table pointed toward Elena's side. A third, a tiny black dome that looked like part of a stereo system, was installed in the living room bookshelf. The DNA kits were next. I swabbed my own cheek, the cotton tip feeling like a betrayal in itself. I sealed the sample and labeled it Father. The hardest part came after dinner, after the kids were bathed and smelling of lavender shampoo. I carried a sleeping Lucas to his bed, my heart aching with a love that now felt uncertain and fragile. Chloe was already asleep in her room, a tangle of limbs and red hair under her comforter. "Daddy's just checking on you, sweetheart," I whispered, my voice thick as I gently swabbed the inside of her mouth. She stirred but didn't wake. Lucas didn't even flinch. They trusted me completely. The guilt was a shard of ice in my chest. I labeled the samples Child 1 and Child 2, unable to write their names.
The next morning, I dropped the prepaid envelope into a mailbox. The lab promised results within 48 hours of receipt. The clock was now ticking loudly in the silent chamber of my dread. The weekend was a surreal pantomime of normalcy. We went to the farmer's market. We built an elaborate fort out of blankets and cushions. We had a family movie night curled up on the sofa. All the while, the cameras were watching, recording the beautiful, heartbreaking lie of our lives. On Monday, I told Elena I'd be working from home. The moment her car disappeared down the street, I retrieved the memory cards. I started with the bathroom footage. My breath caught in my throat. There it was, clear as day. Every morning at precisely 7:15 a.m., after her shower, Elena would open the bottom drawer of her vanity, retrieve a small white pill from a blister pack I couldn't quite see, swallow it with a sip of water, and return the pack to the drawer. It was a smooth, practiced routine. She was on the pill. The confirmation felt like a kick to the sternum. I had to pause the video, my vision swimming, but I made myself keep watching. I fast-forwarded through the bedroom footage, seeing nothing but us sleeping, the mundane comings and goings of daily life. Then, on Saturday night's recording, I saw it. I had been downstairs making popcorn for the movie. Elena had come out of the shower, wrapped in a towel, and instead of getting dressed, she'd gone to her walk-in closet. She emerged a moment later not with clothes, but with a phone, a sleek silver smartphone I had never seen before. My blood ran cold. She typed a message quickly, her face illuminated by the screen, a small secret smile playing on her lips. Then she walked to the air conditioning vent on the far wall, carefully pried the cover off, placed the phone inside, and snapped the cover back into place. A second phone. A secret phone. No wonder I'd found nothing incriminating on the official iPhone I paid for every month. She had a whole separate life, a separate line of communication hidden inside the very walls of our home. I felt a rage so pure and hot it terrified me. It was all true. Every dark, paranoid thought was confirmed. The pill, the secrecy, the second phone. I needed that phone. That night, after I was sure Elena was asleep, I slipped out of bed. The vent cover was on her side of the room. There was no way to open it without risking waking her. I remembered the vent system was interconnected. The intake in our bedroom fed into a main duct that had a vent in Lucas's room. I crept into my son's room, my heart hammering. He was sleeping soundly, his favorite stuffed elephant clutched in his arms. I knelt by the vent, my fingers fumbling in the dim light. The cover came off with a soft squeak. I reached inside, my arm scraping against the metal ductwork, praying I wouldn't encounter a nest of spiders or worse. My fingers brushed against cool, smooth plastic. I grabbed it and pulled out the secret phone. It was locked, of course, a 6-digit code. I rushed to my home office, connected the phone to a cloning device I'd ordered, and prayed the software could bypass the security. It worked, extracting the data in a matter of minutes. The entire time, I listened for the sound of creaking floorboards, for Elena waking up and finding me gone. With trembling hands, I returned the phone to the vent in Lucas's room and slipped back into bed. Elena sighed in her sleep and rolled over. I lay there staring at the ceiling until the sun came up. The next morning, I went to the office early, the clone data saved on a secure flash drive. I locked my door and opened the files. The world dissolved around me. There they were. Text messages. Hundreds of them. Stretching back years. Her. Miss you. Can't stop thinking about this afternoon. Him. You are incredible. He has no idea what he's missing.
He's clueless, working late again, thinking of you in the hotel room, the way you. Soon, my love, we have to be careful. The project in Portland is a perfect cover. He'll never suspect. The project in Portland. My business trip. Last month. I scrolled back, my stomach heaving. There were photos, not explicit, but intimate. A man's hand on her knee at a restaurant I didn't recognize. A selfie of them in a hotel room, her head on his shoulder. And then I saw him. I recognized the face, the smug, confident smile. Daniel Reed, Elena's boss, the charismatic founder of the high-end interior design firm where she worked.
We'd been to company parties at his lavish penthouse. I'd shaken his hand. I'd laughed at his jokes. He'd patted me on the back and told me what a lucky man I was to have such a brilliant and beautiful wife. The irony was so savage, it stole the air from my lungs. I kept reading, the messages painting a vivid, horrifying picture of a years-long affair. They joked about me. They coordinated their schedules around my life. They talked about the future, a future together. And then my blood ran cold as I read a series of messages from around the time of Chloe's birth. It's done. He thinks it's his. He's over the moon. This makes everything safer for us. My clever girl. I wish I could be there. I love you. I stumbled from my chair and vomited into the wastebasket by my desk. Tears of rage and utter devastation streamed down my face. It wasn't just the affair. It was the children. My children. The foundation of my entire existence was a carefully constructed lie. A soft knock sounded at the door. "David? Everything all right?" I heard. Michelle's voice trailed off as she opened the door and saw me hunched over, weeping, the contents of my stomach fouling the air. She didn't gasp. She didn't retreat. Michelle, ever the picture of sharp, no-nonsense efficiency, stepped inside, closed the door, and locked it. She wordlessly handed me a box of tissues and a bottle of water from the mini-fridge. "What happened?" she asked, her voice low and calm. The story spilled out of me in a choked, broken torrent. The foil, the pills, the cameras, the phone, Daniel Reed, the texts about the children. I felt like a pathetic fool, but she just listened, her expression neutral, her eyes taking in the damning evidence on my computer screen. When she finished, she was silent for a moment. Then she spoke, her voice all business. "David, we need details and we need a plan. The DNA tests? Mailed. Results anytime." "Good. Find out the truth, then decide how to act. For now, you need to not be here." She picked up my office phone and dialed reception. "Janice, hold all of David's calls. He's at a family emergency and will be out of the office for the rest of the week." She hung up and looked at me. "You have a site survey for the new high-rise in Seattle. You'll be leaving today." "Seattle? Michelle, we haven't even—" "Trust me," she said, her gaze steady. "Elena will get suspicious if you're around too much right now. You're emotionally compromised. Tell her there's a structural issue, a crisis. I'll handle the booking." Before I could protest, she'd taken my phone and typed a message to Elena. "Emergency in Seattle. A structural issue on the Harrison project. Flying out this afternoon. Sorry. Love you. Back Thursday." Elena's reply was almost instantaneous. "Oh no. Be careful. Love you too. XXO." The cheerful, lying words made me want to scream. Michelle then handed me a business card. "Lorraine Vance. She's a divorce attorney, the best. She handled my sister's case. Go see her now." I was in a daze, a puppet letting Michelle pull the strings because I no longer had the strength to move on my own. Within an hour, I was sitting in a sleek modern office across from Lorraine Vance, a woman with steel gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. I told her everything again, my voice flat and hollow. She listened, asked precise, cutting questions, and laid out my options with the cold clarity of a surgeon wielding a scalpel. Option 1, do nothing. Live with it. I don't recommend this. Option 2, file for a no-fault divorce. You split assets, you likely pay alimony and significant child support for children that are not biologically yours. She walks away with half of everything you've built. Option 3, the nuclear option. We file on grounds of adultery, fraud, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. We go after her and Mr. Reed with everything we have. We use the evidence you've gathered. We sue him for alienation of affection. We go after his company. They have a strict non-fraternization policy. He's her superior.
We make it so painful for them, they'll wish they'd never met. The choice was no choice at all. The anger that had been simmering now boiled over. Nuclear, I said, the word tisting like ash and vengeance. Lorraine nodded, a flicker of respect in her eyes. Then we gather more evidence. I need that clone phone data. I'll have my IT specialist go through it. We'll also need to serve them at the same time for maximum impact. I handed over the flash drive, my hand steady for the first time that day. Michelle had booked me a room at a quiet, anonymous business hotel. Shower, order room service, do not touch the minibar, she ordered. I need you sharp. But sharpness was beyond me. I was a ghost, haunting the confines of a generic room, my life in ruins. The only thing keeping me from completely shattering was the white-hot core of my anger. The next morning, a text alert chimed. The DNA results were in. I couldn't do it. I couldn't look. When Michelle arrived at my hotel room, she took one look at my face and wordlessly took my phone. She opened the link, her eyes scanning the screen. Her face fell, and she looked at me with a profound, aching pity. "I'm so sorry, David." I took the phone. The words blurred, but the conclusion was stark and undeniable. Probability of paternity, 0.00%. Conclusion: David Corbett is excluded as the biological father of Chloe Corbett. Probability of paternity, 0.00%. Conclusion: David Corbett is excluded as the biological father of Lucas Corbett.
Both children. Neither was mine. The love of my life, the center of my universe, was a beautiful, painful fiction. I made a sound, a raw, animal groan of agony, and sank to the floor. Michelle let me cry, her hand a steady, comforting pressure on my shoulder. When the storm subsided, she pulled me to my feet. "Focus, David, or you will lose everything. The business, your home, your financial future. Over 100 people work for you. They depend on you. Don't let that woman take it all down with her." Her words were a lifeline. She was right. I had to think like the architect I was. I had to build a defense, a structure to protect what was left. We went to see my business attorney, Ben Croft. He was an old friend, his expression grim as I laid out the situation. "The good news," Ben said, "is the prenup. Every partner in the firm is required to have one to protect the company. It shields Corbett and Shaw from spousal claims. She can only go after your personal assets, salary, the house, your 401k. "That's over $2 million, I said numbly. "Which is why we need to make those assets disappear legally," Ben said. "Mark has been wanting to sell his share for a year now, ever since his wife inherited that money. We use your liquid assets to buy him out. You take a loan against your 401k to do it if you have to. You funnel every penny you can into the company. You make yourself look, on paper, nearly penniless. The prenup and the timing, doing this before filing, will protect it." It was a huge, terrifying risk, but the alternative was letting Elena and Daniel Reed walk away with half of it. I called Mark. "I need to buy you out," I said, my voice hollow. "Why? What's going on, David? You've been off all week." "Elena's been cheating on me. For years. The kids, they're not mine." There was a long, stunned silence on the other end of the line. "Jesus, David, I don't know what to say." "Of course. Yeah, let's do it. I'll keep a small share. I'm here for you, brother." The paperwork was drawn up by the end of the day. I cashed out my 401k, taking the massive tax penalty.
I refinanced the house, pulling equity out. Every dollar was funneled into the company, making me the majority shareholder, and, on paper, a man of significant illiquid assets but very little cash. It was a fortress, and Elena was on the wrong side of the walls. On Monday morning, Lorraine filed the divorce papers. Simultaneously, she filed a lawsuit against Daniel Reed's design firm for failure to enforce their own ethics policies and a personal suit against Daniel for alienation of affection. At precisely 10 a.m., a process server walked into Reed Designs and handed the papers to a stunned Daniel Reed. Another server delivered the lawsuit to the company's HR director. A third found Elena at her desk. My phone began to ring incessantly at 10:09. It wasn't Elena. It was my mother. "David, what in God's name is this?" Her voice was shrill. "I got a letter from your lawyer, accusations about Elena, about the children. This is insane." "Did you read it, Mom?" I asked, my voice flat. "I read enough. This is your wife, the mother of your children. How can you do this to her, to this family?" "They are not my children." The line went silent for a beat. "That's a terrible thing to say. You raised them. You've been their father since the day they were born. Does that mean nothing?" "It was built on a lie. So you just throw them away? You punish those innocent babies for something Elena did? Do you think they won't suffer? That we won't all suffer? I will not lose my grandchildren over this, David. I won't allow it." "Then don't," I said, the ice in my voice surprising even me. "I have to go." I hung up. The phone rang again immediately. Elena. "David, we need to talk." Her voice was shaking, panicked. "I'm coming home." I said nothing. I simply ended the call. Home. The word had lost all meaning. I drove to the house, my heart a block of stone in my chest. I waited in my home office, ignoring the flood of emails from outraged relatives. My father called me a coward. My sister said I was tearing the family apart. Elena arrived 20 minutes later, her face pale and streaked with tears, her usually perfect hair disheveled. She slammed the office door shut. "David, I can explain. I'm not interested." "But you have to let me know," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. "I don't have to do anything. You have lied to me for over 6 years. You have let me believe another man's children were my own. You convinced me to get a vasectomy to protect your secret. So no, Elena, I don't want to hear a single word from you. All communication will go through my lawyer. Her information is in the packet you were served." "What about the children?" she cried, her voice breaking. "What children?" I responded. "I don't have any children, and thanks to you, I never will. Now, I would ask why you did this, but I have no interest in your excuses." I walked to the office door and opened it. Maria was hovering in the hallway, her face anxious. "Maria, you're fired. Effective immediately. Pack your things and get out." "What? Why?" she stammered, her eyes wide with fear. "Because you knew," I said, pointing a finger at Elena. "You knew she was sleeping with her boss. I have video of you talking to Daniel Reed about the children's schedules. You covered for her. Get out." "David," Elena interjected, "you can't fire her. I'm the one who manages her." "I've already informed the agency," I said, my gaze locked on Maria. "I told them you were complicit in an affair and that I wouldn't pursue legal action against them if they removed you from their roster. So if Elena wants to keep you on personally, she can handle your payroll, your taxes, your vacation, your insurance, all of it." Maria's face went from fear to sheer panic. Being blacklisted by the agency was a career death sentence. She turned and fled up the stairs without another word. "Did you have to do that?" she shrieked. "She didn't deserve that." "You're talking again." I gut her off. "What I want is for you to pack your things, take your children, and get the hell out of my house." "This is my house, too." Not according to the deed and the prenup, I said coldly. It's in my name. Until a court says otherwise, get the hell out. She flinched as if I'd struck her. At that moment, Chloe wandered in, rubbing her eyes. Mommy, Lucas is crying. Elena, shattered, looked from me to our daughter, her daughter, and broke down completely. She pushed past me and ran upstairs. I shut my office door and listened to the sounds of her frantic packing. A few minutes later, she came back down, carrying a weeping Lucas on her hip, clutching Chloe's hand. Are you not even going to say goodbye to them? She sobbed. Don't, I said, my voice cracking, despite my resolve. He is not my son. She is not my daughter. Take them to their father. They have nothing to do with me. The look of utter devastation on her face was something I would carry with me forever. She left, the front door closing with a final, hollow thud. I collapsed into my chair, the dam finally breaking. I wept for the children I loved, for the father I had believed I was, for the life that was gone. A moment later, Michelle let herself in. She must have been waiting outside. She didn't say a word, just held me as I cried. The wheels of justice, once set in motion, ground on relentlessly. Elena obtained a restraining order, a pathetic attempt to gain leverage claiming emotional distress. Lorraine had it overturned within days, presenting the judge with evidence of my distress caused by her fraud. Elena moved in with her parents. Daniel Reed was fired within a week of the lawsuit being served, his reputation in tatters. The negative publicity for his firm was immense, and they settled with me for a substantial, confidential sum to make it go away. Daniel himself, facing the affection of allegiance suit, settled out of court for another significant chunk of money, enough to cover the penalties from my drained 401k and then some. I was numb to it all. The money was a salve, but it couldn't heal the wound. The true heartbreak was the silence in the house, the empty rooms that once echoed with childish laughter. I loved those children with every fiber of my being, but every time I thought of seeing them, I saw Daniel Reed's smug face. I couldn't do it. Elena used them as a weapon, sending pictures, begging me to be in their lives for their sake. But I wasn't ready. I might never be ready. I sold the house, unable to bear the memories trapped within its walls, and took a loss. I moved into Michelle's spare room. She was my anchor, professional at work, but quietly, steadfastly supportive at home. There was a new tension between us, a charge I was too emotionally exhausted to decipher. The day the divorce was finalized, the official envelope arrived at my office. I held the decree in my hands. It was over. I was free. The feeling was not of elation, but of a vast, empty quiet. My phone rang. It was Michelle from her desk outside. David? Her voice was strange, tight. Daniel Reed is dead. What? His wife. She found him with Elena again. Apparently, it had been going on for years, even during his marriage. There was a fight, and she shot him. He's dead. I sat there, the phone pressed to my ear, the news washing over me. The man who had fathered the children I loved, who had stolen my wife and my life, was gone. He would never get to raise them. I felt a grim, dark sense of closure. I couldn't muster an ounce of pity. Couldn't have happened to a nicer guy, I muttered, the words tasting bitter. I expected Michelle to chastise me for my callousness, but instead she was silent for a moment. Then my office door opened and she walked in, with an envelope in her hand. This also arrived for you, she said softly. The final settlement from Daniel's estate. I looked at the check. It was a life-changing amount of money. I was free, truly free, of debt, of a lying wife, of the man who had cuckolded at me. I exhaled, leaning back in my chair, utterly drained and completely adrift. Michelle closed the door and locked it. She stepped forward, her gaze intense. Then, without a word, she leaned down and kissed me. It wasn't a kiss of pity or comfort. It was firm, passionate, and filled with a longing that shook me to my core. When she pulled back, my heart was pounding for a new, terrifying, exhilarating reason. She smiled at my stunned expression. For 9 years, I have taken care of you, David Corbett. You are the most decent, kind man I have ever known. You never once crossed a line, even when your marriage was clearly making you unhappy. I've waited a long time for you to be free. If they'll let me, I want to show you that not every woman lies. Not every relationship ends in heartbreak. The pieces clicked into place. Her unwavering support, her fierce protection, her insistence on fighting for me. I had been so blind, so consumed by the beautiful illusion of my life with Alana that I had never seen the genuine article standing right beside me. I thought of my vasectomy. I remembered my doctor years ago mentioning that reversals were possible with a high success rate. A tiny, fragile shoot of hope pushed its way through the ashes of my heart. I looked at Michelle, this strong, incredible woman who had stood by me through the worst hell of my life. A real smile, the first genuine one in months, touched my lips. "How many kids do you think we should have?" I asked, the raw hope in my voice making it crack. She grinned, her eyes shining. "At least 2, but let's just see where this goes." In that moment, the heavy door of my past finally swung shut. The future was a blank page, terrifying and uncertain, but for the first time in a year, I didn't feel trapped by the ghosts of a life that had never been real. The heartbreak had been the brutal, necessary price of my freedom. And as Michelle kissed me again, I knew, with a certainty that settled deep in my soul, that it had been a fair trade, after all.